Okay? Yes. Okay, dear students, now the topic is 3.3, that is Stephen Hawking. All of us know, the world knows rather, what Stephen Hawking has been. The world knows how great the person he was. The world knows how he has beaten all the odds and has come up as one of the greatest scientists ever to have lived on this planet. लेकिन उनके बारे में सबसे before talking about even Stephen Hawking, is important to understand that a human mind, a human brain, if is willing to go to great extent and to go to great depths rather, they can cross all the boundaries of the universe. So that's what the topic Stephen Hawking is more precisely being described about. Number one. Number second, topic में important ये है कि the topic is more about scientific developments which Stephen Hawking brought in spite of having all the limitations, in spite of having all the possible negatives against him, and still he went on to become as one of the greatest. When his body was entirely numb, there was no movement in his body, his only brain could work. Okay, his entire body over below his neck was completely paralyzed. He was diagnosed with a disease called as a motor neuron disease, and still ये आदमी दुनिया के ऊपर gravitation, physics, rather more than gravitation I would say physics, relativity and theory of relativity, he bought in and he made it the biggest success for the world today. So let's go with the chapter, my dear friends. The chapter has got 4 stars, to be very honest. Chapter थोड़ा difficult है at your age because the words are very difficult, the words are quite in depth. So my suggestion is this chapter basically last year जो मैं देख रहा हूँ, that is past 3 years, this chapter comes in the papers. मतलब बोर्ड एग्जाम में तो इतना इम्पोर्टेंस में नहीं आ रहा है इन टर्म्स ऑफ इट्स लेसन, लेकिन हाँ इसके जो एक्टिविटी बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस है, दोज एक्टिविटी बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस डेफिनेटली are there as a part of board examinations, number one. And number second is topic, but for your unit test, but for your terms and everything, you can definitely expect this topic to be there in the most precise manner. So get into the pairs and match the prominent personalities with the disabilities they had. So this is one first activity that you have to complete. Okay, next one, word building. Okay, so word building is you found the words. Okay, now for example, reduplication, the root stem of the word is repeated exactly the same or with a slight change. For example, tweet, pitter patter, chit chat, bing bang, bang bang, riff raff. Now blending, parts of 2 or more words combine to form a new one. Which means what? Breakfast plus lunch is brunch, smog plus fog is smog, motor plus hotel is motel. Okay, so blending is what is called as you try and blend the words to come up as a new word. Okay, so reducing a word, mathematics is maths, advertisement is ad, laboratory is lab. So these are also called as clipping. Clipping is you convert or you clip it into one small. Okay, so it's called as one small formation. It is not abbreviation. Abbreviation जो है वो नीचे आते हैं. These are also synonym or clear with acronyms. Okay. Let's say for example we can take WWW. What does WWW mean? World Wide Web. Similarly, a CID over here can also be called as the ones we have a bureau investigation, so crime investigation department. KYC, know your customer. Okay, so this is how things are. This is how these are. These are also called as abbreviations. इनको क्या कहा जाता है? These are also called as abbreviations. Okay, number 1, very clearly being said. Let's go further. Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking, 8th of Jan 1942, he is an English theoretical physicist, cosmologist, author and director of research at the Center of Theoretical Cosmology within the Cambridge University. Hawking was the first to set out a theory of cosmology explained by union of general theory of relativity and quantum machines. Hawking is an honorary fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, a lifetime member of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, and a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian award in the US. The highest civilian award in the US. This lesson gives us an insight about the great scientist, his life and works. Great gives us insight. Insight का मतलब है look into. Okay, look into you can say, or gets us to know. Gets us to know. Stephen Hawking, born 8th of Jan 42, is a British scientist, professor and author who has done groundbreaking work in physics and cosmology. Okay, groundbreaking is exemplary. I'll write the meanings, my dear friends. It's a request to you that you have a note of this as well, because this one word or synonyms are an important fact. So exemplary means something was done groundbreaking, मतलब दुनिया को हिला देने वाला ऐसा कुछ काम करके रखा है. Work in physics and cosmology, and whose books have helped to make science accessible to everyone. Accessible is easily attainable, okay, comfortable. At the age of 21, while studying cosmology at the University of Cambridge, he was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS. Part of his life story was depicted in the 2014 film The Theory of Everything. Okay. Over the years, Stephen Hawking has written or co-written a total of 15 books. A few of most noteworthy include: in 1988, Hawking catapulted to international prominence with the publication of A Brief History of Time. Catapulted is launched. Catapulted is launched. You can also write a better word. Another word is established. Another word is established. Now, A Brief History of Time. The short informative book became an account of cosmology for the masses and offered an overview of space and time, the existence of God and the future. The work was an instant success, spending more than 4 years atop the London Sunday Times bestseller list. Since its publication, it has sold millions of copies worldwide and been translated into more than 40 languages. A Brief History of Time also wasn't as easy as to understand as some had hoped. So in 2001, Hawking followed up his book with a universe in a nutshell. So nutshell is in a brief. Okay, in short, we are giving you the brief about the universe. That's called as universe in a brief, which offered a more illustrated guide to cosmology's big theories. Illustrated is you can say described, a well described guide to cosmology's big theories. In 2005, Hawking authored the even more accessible A Briefer History of Time, which further simplified the original work's core concepts. Core is the central concept. मतलब क्या हुआ, हॉकिंस ने सबसे पहले एक बुक लिखा. The book was called as A Brief History of Time. I don't know whether many of you have read this book or no, but I personally have gone through this book quite on a brief note, and trust me, the book has a simple life stories. Does not have simple life stories, but it's got theory of time, and where Hawkins has proved that time travels faster. Time has the ability to travel faster. So this is what the book has also been mentioned clearly, and accordingly, Hawking authored the even more accessible A Briefer History of Time, which further simplified the original work's core concepts and touched upon the newest developments in the field like string theory. Touched upon is made as understood. Touched upon is made as understand or also linked to, or also it can be called as linked to. Okay, string theory. Together, these three books, along with Hawking's own research and papers, articulate the physicist's personal search for science's holy grail, a single unifying theory that can combine cosmology with quantum mechanics to explain how the universe began. Holy grail, a thing which is eagerly pursued or sought after, something which is more influential or can be thought about. That is called as holy grail. So combine cosmology with quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is the study of the small. Study of the small matlab unit wise study, that's called as quantum mechanics. It's this kind of ambitious thinking that has allowed Hawking, who claims he can think in 11 dimensions, to lay out some big possibilities of humankind. Ideally, human brain can think into a 3D dimension. So 3-dimension rules is what a human brain can think about. लेकिन Hawkins ने कहा that I can think into 11 different dimensions. So एक ही चीज को 11 तरीकों से इंटरप्रेट करना, that is what is called as 11-dimensional theory. And आगे जाके this theory was also made more wise. Okay, 11-dimensional theory, and this was extremely important to understand from the scientist's perspective. He's believed that, okay, that time travel is possible and that humans may indeed colonize other planets in the future. What is the meaning of colonize? Colonize is conquer. Colonize is conquer. In September 2010, Hawking spoke against the idea that God could have created the universe in his book, The Grand Design. My God. So this was something really again splendid and something really superficial. He challenged that God could have created the universe in his book, is The Grand Design, is a different thing. So he believed that, has really God created the universe or what? Hawking previously argued that belief in a creator could be compatible with modern scientific theories. His new work, however, concluded the Big Bang was the inevitable. Inevitable, it was almost possible. Consequence of the law of physics and nothing. So what did he say? He believed that anything is possible with the laws of physics. So he obviously gives science an upper hand over anything, because he believes that with the help of science I can tell you that God hasn't created the universe, it's the cosmic world and the cosmology which has created the universe. Okay, so accordingly this is what he immensely was important, this is what he has clearly described. Now, but I can simply relate this chapter with a 2.6 that is about 2.6 that is about science and spirituality. Over there it has made science is not possible with spirituality, and spirituality requires scientific upbringing. Right. So similarly over here, Hawkins was purely scientific. Okay, he did not believe in spiritual sciences, neither the godly creations. He believed that it's pure science which is leading man to move forward in life. So nothing is bigger than scientific applause and scientific theories. Because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. Hawking said, spontaneous creation is the reason there is something rather than nothing. Why the universe exists, why we exist. The Grand Design was Hawking's first major publication in almost a decade. Within his new work, Hawking set out to challenge Sir Isaac Newton's belief that the universe had to have been designed by God, simply because it could have been born from chaos. It is not necessary to invoke God to light the blue touch paper and set the universe going. So Hawking हमेशा कहते थे कि हर बार किसी चीज़ के लिए to call up God is not ideally what is required. At the age of 21, Stephen Hawking was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease. In a very simple sense, the nerves that controlled his muscles were shutting down. At the time, doctors gave him 2.5 years to live. Hawking first began to notice problems with his physical health while he was at Oxford. On occasion, he would trip and fall. Trip and fall is he would feel a bit giddy and fall down. Or slur in his speech. Slur matlab to lose out on words. Okay, having a bit of twist into your words. That's called as slurring in his speech. He didn't look into the problem until 63, during his first year at Cambridge. For the most part, Hawking kept these symptoms to himself. But when his father took notice of the condition, he took Hawking to see a doctor. For the next 2 weeks, a 21-year-old college student made his home at a medical clinic where he underwent a series of tests. They took a muscle sample from my arm, stuck electrodes into me and injected some radio-opaque fluid into my spine and watched it going up and down with x-rays as they tilted the bed. He once said, after all, they didn't tell me what I had except that it was not multiple sclerosis and that I was an atypical case. Atypical matlab unusual case. So Hawking said I was not typically suffering from multiple sclerosis as what doctors predicted, but I was an atypical case. Atypical manja I was a unique case. I was a very special case. Eventually, however, doctors that diagnosed Hawking with the early stages of ALS. It was devastating news for him and his family, but a few events prevented him from becoming completely despondent. Despondent is to be completely dependent on someone. Despondent ka matlab hai to be dependent on someone, and that's the most saddest thing about his life. Okay, about anybody's life rather. To be dependent on someone for your all the basic things is something really sad situation. The first of these came while Hawking was still in the hospital. Therefore, he shared a room with a boy suffering from leukemia. Now, what is leukemia? A malignant progressive disease in which the bone marrow and the other blood-forming organs produce increased numbers of abnormal white blood cells. Relative to what his roommate was going through, Hawking later reflected his situation seemed more tolerable. So, his roommate was suffering from a deadly disease regarding the bloods and the blood corpuscles, but compared to that, Hawking believed that I have a better disease and I can tolerate at least. Hawking later reflected on that. Not long after he was released from the hospital, Hawking had a dream that he was going to be executed. He said this dream made him realize that there were still things to do with his life. In a sense, Hawking's disease helped him become the noted scientist he is today. Before the diagnosis, Hawking hadn't always focused on his studies. Before my condition was diagnosed, I had been very bored with life. There had not seemed to be anything worth doing, with a sudden realization that he might not even live long enough to earn his PhD. Hawking poured himself into his work and research. As physical control over his body diminished, he would be forced to use a wheelchair by 1969. The effects of his disease started to slow down over time. However, Hawking's ever-expanding career was accompanied by an ever-worsening physical state. So what happened? एक साइड से बेचारे का मतलब इनका career grow हो रहा था, it was flourishing, and on the other side, his physical condition was going down. By the mid-70s, Hawking's family had taken in one of Hawking's graduate students to help manage his care and work. He could still feed himself and get out of the bed, but virtually everything else required assistance. Assistance here means help. In addition, his speech had become increasingly slurred. Slurred is left out. Okay, so that only those who knew him could well understand him. In 1985, he lost his voice for good following a tracheotomy. Tracheotomy, an incision in the windpipe made to relieve an obstruction to breathing. The resulting situation required 24-hour nursing care for the acclaimed physicist. It also put in peril Hawking's ability to do his work. The predicament caught the attention of a California computer programmer who had developed a speaking program that could be directed by head or eye movement. The invention allowed Hawking to select words on a computer screen that were then passed through a speech synthesizer. At the time of his introduction, Hawking, who still had use of his fingers, selected his words with a handheld clicker. Today, with virtually all control of his body gone, Hawking directs the program through a cheek muscle attached to his sensor. So through cheek, there is a sensor attached to his cheek that catches his senses, and that is what gets an action done in the form of activity. Through the program, with the help of assistants, Hawking has continued to write at a prolific rate, at a good rate, at an extensive rate. Okay, so prolific is at a good pace or at an extensive rate. His work has included numerous scientific papers, of course, but also information for the non-scientific community. Hawking's health, of course, remains a constant concern. A worry that was heightened in 2009 when he failed to appear at a conference in Arizona because of a chest infection. In April, Hawking, who had already announced he was retiring after 30 years from the post of Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at Cambridge, was rushed to the hospital for being what university officials described as gravely ill. It was later known that he was expected to make a full recovery. So what happened over here is Hawking eventually kept on losing his control over his entire body, number one. Number second, because of this, what happened? The moment he lost control, or the moment he was on to lose the effects of his body, the control of his body, the coordination of his nervous system with his entire body, was the time when he realized that now his time is up. But what made him get back is science. Okay, so he believed science was more important than anything else in the world today, and that has made all the difference in his life. Number two. Number three, what is important is he had attached. Doctors had attached a census machine towards his cheek, which could catch an entire census what his body was willing to say. So even though he was progressing gradually in terms of its academics, rather he was flourishing in his career, but what was going down was his health. This is what God has always been doing. He never gives everything to everybody. He keeps something to himself, and that's what we have seen in the poem called The Pulley in 2.4. Okay, everybody. Yes. So let us get back to the activity-based questions, dear students. Okay. First one, observe the timeline and search the occurrences according to it. Prepare a chart. So my dear students, this question again for 2 marks for sure. Okay, so you can observe it very clearly. 8th of Jan 1942 क्या हुआ? 69, 70, 88. Okay, make the list of books written by Stephen Hawking. सबसे पहले theory of time and space. Okay, next one is written the greater inceptions into it, so you can write down the name of the books as well which is written. Make a list of Hawking's physical inabilities after 1963. Physical inabilities मतलब क्या है? Hawkins ने सबसे पहले क्या हुआ? He lost his speech. थोड़ा उनको slurring in speech हो रहा था, losing control over his body, unfortunately trying to recover his coordination back. So that was one thing. Next one, complete the shape your mind. Okay, complete the network of cluster diagram with the name of great personalities and their contribution. So fine arts वाले कौन great personalities हैं? Mathematics में who are the people? Excellence में, science में कौन से literature में who are the people? So you simply have to name the personality. So I suggest you just remember it very well, because if this question comes कि science के 2 लोग बोलो, fine arts के 2 लोग बोलो, mathematics के any 2 people, so I believe you should be able to understand and and read and write properly in the paper, because exam may, if you get this question, this is going to be there definitely for 2 full marks. Okay, now complete the web chart. Okay, Stephen Hawking's achievement 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So in terms of the web diagram, only one word has to be written. Never nerves control muscles stopped working. Okay, slur in his speech, yet continued writing book. Okay, the theory of time, the greater theory of time, the history of time as well. Of course, eventually he went on to add many feathers. His career graph was on a high, but unfortunately his health was diminishing. So these are the achievements, yet he kept on going ahead in his life. Explain how the life of Stephen Hawking proves the proverb, every cloud is a silver lining. Absolutely, every dark cloud does have a silver lining. Nothing comes with nothing comes with great challenges. Greater the challenges, greater is the success. That's what is important. Do you agree or disagree? Stephen Hawking was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. No. Hawking believed that man cannot live in other planets in future. No. Though Hawking lost control of his body, he writes with a prolific rate with the help of assistants. True. Hawking has written or co-written more than 25 books. Wonderful. That's true. Okay. So in the jumbled order, you have to organize it in the chronological form. Fill in the blanks with the proper form of verbs as per the subject. So accordingly, you have to fill in the blanks clearly. Okay. For example, mother cooks a good meal. Mother and her daughter cook a good meal. Okay. That's important again. The rise and fall of the empire, okay, are recorded in history. Neither Ritesh nor Alok play well. So these are the basics of grammar. Okay. Whenever I say he or she, I always say plays, because pronoun जब भी singular आता है, I always put s, but whenever I say they or people, I never put plays, I put play. I always put over there play. Clear everybody? That's it. So this is about it. Next one, from the following sentences, underline the nouns and encircle the determiners that specify the noun in a noun phrase. So he lost his voice for good. Over the years, Hawking has written 15 books. Demonstrate over the years. So over these 3 books, a few events prevented him. Okay, that dream made him realize. So it's that. That's it, everybody. So demonstrative ka matlab hai the things which demonstrate, the things which point out and clearly depict. That's called as demonstration. So this is again the activity-based questions of this chapter. I request everybody to please go through this and make sure that you revise the entire topic in detail with great amount of understanding. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much.